What is up, Bitcoiners? I had an amazing talk with Mike Colyer, and I have to admit, I turned off the record way too soon because afterwards we kept chatting for about 15 minutes, and it was just pure gold. Mike has been bringing mining to North America and working at several different players that are still very, very relevant in the North American mining game for a long time before it was cool. He finds himself today as the CEO of Foundry, which is a part of DCG and a massive part of building out mining and mining financial services throughout North America. They are building a massive North American mining pool. They are financing and helping miners bring on top of the line equipment onto the North American continent. And they are doing a ton of other stuff to bring a lot of value to mining in North America. It is awesome to dive into a bevy of different topics and subjects with Mike. We talk about the ASIC game, the best manufacturers, mining in geopolitics, why mining is good for nation states and why nation states should adopt it, and why Bitcoin is going to be a fundamental part of energy production. This is something that I believe personally. I see it trending in that direction. And you guys, Bitcoin is going to enable green energy. Bitcoin is going to enable the build out of this new energy infrastructure that we desperately need. The old infrastructure is broken, and Bitcoin is the way that we replace it. Mike really talks about all this stuff, and I think you guys are going to like it. But before we get into that, let me tell you guys about Bitcoin 2021. Both Mike and I are going to be there. The Foundry team is sponsoring, and this event is the absolute zeitgeist of the Bitcoin community. This is where everyone's going to be. People are hitting me up every single day asking for discounts. And I can tell you one thing, you are going to be able to get the best discount using promo code Satoshi. That is Satoshi, spelled Satoshi. You can get 10% off of your ticket, and you can even save even more money. You can save an additional $400 if you pay us in Bitcoin. We want to be paid in Bitcoin. We don't want your dirty fiat. So we are willing to give a discount to the Bitcoiners out there listening to this show and willing to use Bitcoin as their money. All right, y'all, let's get into this podcast with the CEO of Foundry, Mike Colyer. Bitcoiners, I am sitting across the screen from Mike Colyer. Mike, we met for the very first time. I think it was in 2019 in Miami, and I think we're going to meet again at Bitcoin 2021 in Miami. But for the audience, Mike is the CEO of Foundry, which is one of the biggest miners in North America and the operator of the biggest mining pool outside of China, which is really freaking awesome. And it's awesome to get you on the show to talk all things mining, especially with all the craziness that's happening. Mike, welcome to the show.
Christian, thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you again in Miami here in, less than a month. It's going to be crazy.
It's coming up fast. I'm excited and anxious, but it's going to be an absolute incredible time. And the events team has absolutely done a smashing job. I've been seeing like videos of all the stuff being set up and the venue itself. It's awesome. It's awesome.
We're excited to be a sponsor of the event, and I think I'm speaking, and I think Kevin Zhang is going to be speaking at Whale Day, and just looking forward to seeing everybody in Miami. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Well, hey, if you haven't gotten your ticket to the conference, you can get a discount promo code Satoshi. And come see Mike, come see us all there. It's going to be an amazing time. But Mike, let's kind of introduce the Bitcoin Magazine audience to, who are you? I met you. You were doing mining, not for Foundry. You hadn't founded it quite yet, but you've been in the mining game for quite a while and pushing mining in North America before it was hot and cool.
Yeah. So let me tell you my story real quick. I got into mining about 4 years ago. Which seems like an eternity in the mining world. And I spent 20 years in the traditional world of manufacturing distribution. I was a hired gun for private equity companies. And in June of 2017, I ended up going down kind of that Bitcoin rabbit hole. And it reminded me very much of the start of the internet. I was in college when, Mosaic and Netscape came out, and I just felt like this technology solved a lot of problems that couldn't be solved with the current tech. And I just didn't think this happened very often in a lifetime. And I decided to jump into it. And quite honestly, I fell in love with the mining space. It made sense to me. I connected with it, felt like we had to build out the infrastructure first. And it felt like the United States was kind of behind it was behind China. And it was a good opportunity for North America to kind of expand the presence. And it's just been a wild ride ever since. So I got to live through the boom of 2017 into 2018, and then the bust and crypto winter, and now it's booming again. So it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, when we were meeting, it was like deep in crypto winter. And like, I think you were talking about like turning off some miners just because some of them just like didn't make sense anymore. But things have really turned around. But things, I feel like things were turbulent and exciting back then, and that has not changed whatsoever. So I'm excited to have you on to kind of get an insight into what's kind of happening right now.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey. So I got connected with a small company called Savage. We grew the business from like 1 megawatt to 3 megawatts. And this is like early 2018. And I just thought that was, it seemed like a huge deal at the time. And then knew the guys that started Core Scientific. They talked me into joining them. And they were at about 25 megawatts at the time, which was amazing. And we grew it to over 100 megawatts. And I think today they're well over 250. And then in October of 19, I got a chance to join DCG. And I feel very fortunate to be here at DCG leading Foundry. Barry Silbert, he's done amazing things, started a lot of companies. He actually started Foundry and felt like it was time to bring a lot more transparency to the mining space and build trust and efficiency, because we felt like institutional money was coming. So Foundry, a year ago, it was me and Andrea and our intern Lucas. And today we have over 30 employees. We're based in Rochester, New York. And we focus on supporting decentralized networks. And it's both proof of work and proof of stake. So it's been an amazing journey. It's been the last 18 months have just been out of control. So
talking about supporting these digital networks, how does Foundry decide we're going to mine Bitcoin versus we're going to mine with GPUs versus we're going to put R&D and kind of resources into staking services? Like, what's
question.
the mix and how do you make decisions around that?
Yeah. So, when I started, Barry said, he goes, look, go build a business for the long term. Think in terms of decades, not months or quarters. And here's a white sheet of paper. Figure out how we're going to leverage DCG brand, its balance sheet, its subsidiary companies, its portfolio companies, and how do we bring this transparency and trust to the mining space and support the institutional players that were going to come into the space. And the first thing we decided to do was offer equipment financing. So we knew a lot of miners had built out the infrastructure, but they were cash poor. 18 months ago, everyone was cash poor. And we said, let's provide equipment financing so they can get the latest generation machines.
At the perfect time too.
Well, that's what we thought. And to be honest with you, at the time, a lot of people said, well, mining economics are horrible. The halving's coming. We're not sure. So we ended up buying a lot of machines. And
yeah, let's go. That's awesome. Anyone who looks at the halving and thinks that that's bearish just didn't get it.
Yeah, exactly. So we bought a lot of equipment. We're big fans of Bitmain, big fans of MicroBT, and we started doing equipment financing deals for folks. And then we started plugging in our own equipment. And Christian, over the last 18 months, we've deployed $225 million into the North American mining space, either for our own self-mining or to support other miners with equipment financing. And our goal really is to build out the mining ecosystem in North America. And of course, by the time September rolled around, Bitcoin had jumped to 20, back up into above 10,000, and then it was off to the races, and mining became like the thing to do. And we've been really excited to support a lot of miners throughout North America, helping them get new equipment. We provide advisory services. We launched our North American mining pool now, which we're excited to be the largest pool outside of China. And for us, it's really about killing the narrative that China controls the mining space. And we believe there's a certain group of people that are not investing in Bitcoin because they think it's controlled by China. And we want to really kill that narrative. And I think we've helped lead the way to get a lot of hash rate now coming to North America. We jumped to the front of the line for machines. And now we want to be able to provide a transparent, reliable mining pool that institutional miners, publicly traded miners, can feel comfortable mining in. And it's not, a black box like you get with a lot of the Chinese pools. So we're pretty excited about what's transpired. And, the industry, firsthand, the industry is changing so fast. Today, the publicly traded mining companies, they're raising enormous amounts of money. This time last year, nobody could even buy 1,000 machines, and now they're making purchases for 100,000 machines. So it's fantastic. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Michael Saylor really opened up Pandora's box when it comes to traditional financing mechanisms in order to have a bigger play into the Bitcoin and crypto space. So I think that's not going to stop. And I'm very interested in see how public miners continue to, let's just say, leverage up to get like cold, hard equipment.
Absolutely. I think it's, the narrative in the whole space is so different today versus 2017, right? Where it's now like acceptable to have Bitcoin on your balance sheet, and it's not this scary thing. And every bank now has a strategy on how they're going to deal with Bitcoin. It's amazing how fast it's moving.
So let's talk about that. I want to dive deeper into the mining ecosystem, but being a part of DCG, you kind of have a firsthand view into really the entire ecosystem kind of blossoming around Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies today. I've spoken to bankers, CEOs, that kind of stuff from fintech that are jumping into Bitcoin and crypto. Can you just, weigh in a little bit on, what you're seeing today, and maybe even kind of hint at what could surprise our listeners in the short to medium term?
Yeah. So on the proof of work side, where we think this all goes is bigger and bigger players are going to get involved in the ecosystem. So today we've got these publicly traded miners. They're kind of paving the way, making it more mainstream. We definitely view over the next 2 to 5 years, the large energy companies are starting to wake up to mining. We actually believe nation states will have a strategy around mining. We're already starting to see it with some smaller countries, but countries that have a natural advantage, whether it's through their natural resources, or they just want to have some exposure to Bitcoin, they're going to have a strategy around Bitcoin mining. So they've got strategies around oil exploration, gold mining. I think Bitcoin mining is going to be on that list, and we're really excited to work with those players to help them navigate the space, because it's a difficult space to navigate. There's a lot of bad actors in the mining space, and everybody's got a story, and it's hard to sort out who's real and who's not real. And we're trying to bring another level of professionalism to the industry, and it's happening. It's really exciting.
If anyone that we would consider to be a public entity in the US or Western Europe wants to get involved with Bitcoin, the foundation that Foundry is kind of building, as well as other players in North America, is necessary, because I don't think any of them are going to participate with what BTC.com or some of these other like random pools, even some of the bigger ones that are, building maybe longer reputations. There's just an element to them that's not palatable for that type of institution. But kind of talking about, nation states, jumping into mining, like there's a perspective where like they have no choice, right? As Bitcoin becomes more relevant, this is just something that is necessary. But like on the flip side, like there's a lot of positives for many nation states, including the US, for kind of jumping into this head first, just like the US jumped into the internet and the dot-com boom and fostered it. Why should nation states, adopt Bitcoin and adopt mining and have a strategy? And like, why is that a good thing rather than, something that they're forced to do per se?
Yeah. So one of the things I love about Bitcoin is that it's a decentralized network that allows anybody to participate. So, so any country in the world can engage and participate in the network. We are essentially building a global computer that can never be shut down. That's what's happening right now. That's what Bitcoin is. I believe I view it as a protocol layer, and it's a protocol layer that transfers value, and anybody can plug into that layer and support it. And it's something that cannot be turned off. We even saw 2 weeks ago, there's always been the FUD around China shutting down mining and banning mining. And look at one province shut down mining, and it took down 20 to 30% of the network. Guess what? Did Bitcoin stop? No. It wasn't even like really even a bump in the road. Everybody wanted to talk about it for a few days, but the whole thing still worked. And that's a pretty powerful concept. And I think it's going to be really important, because there's going to be all kinds of stuff built on top of these networks, right? And I think it's important that countries are thinking about how they want to engage their population around these networks. I'm really glad that the internet was really built in the United States. That Google was founded in Silicon Valley and not someplace else in the world. So I think we're going to want to be at the front of this innovation, not trying to play catch up later on.
And, I feel like there's this kind of like negative slant that a lot of like, let's call it the media or maybe uninformed observers, onto like how much energy is being used to support these networks and stuff like that. Typically that criticism comes from either uninformed people or people who think that on a baseline, Bitcoin has no use case. Therefore, any energy expended for it is a total waste. Like, can you just, in your way, address that? And like, why should the U.S. again jump into this head first rather than, shun it as is popular?
Yeah. So a couple thoughts there. We could spend, 2 hours, a whole day going down this rabbit hole. There's a couple things. One, like if you're concerned about the environment and you want to eliminate carbon, you should stop mining coal and using coal for energy production, right? Like forget about Bitcoin. That's just like fundamental. Or we should probably be doing more nuclear, using nuclear as a energy source. In terms of Bitcoin, what's amazing is how efficient the network is. And what I mean by that is a year ago, we've gone from $180 billion stored on the Bitcoin network to over $1 trillion. The network security has basically doubled, and the amount of electricity being used to secure the network has pretty much remained flat during that time frame, trended up maybe just a little bit. That efficiency is incredible. And how does that happen? Well, it happens because the latest generation equipment is 100%. It's twice as efficient as the last generation, right? When you compare an S19 to an S9, they're night and day. And part of this is like Bitcoin, Bitcoin's going to use electricity. That's proof of work, right? So there's going to be more electricity being used, but the amount of value that we're going to get from it is the efficiency on it is incredible. So you're storing 5 times the amount of value on the network, basically using the same amount of electricity. So it's not going to be one of these runaway things that people want to portray it as. And then
the price will run away. But the electricity usage, what you're saying is maybe is going to be growing more linearly, whereas the value stored on it is going to go probably exponential.
Yeah, I mean, we could see $10 trillion stored on the Bitcoin network, and maybe the electricity will double over the next few years. But the one thing that I think is missing, and people don't want to talk about, is I actually view Bitcoin mining as the bridge to a world where we have 100% renewable energy. And when you start to understand how Bitcoin mining works, it's got a very constant heavy load, base load, but it's also intermittent power, which allows Bitcoin miners can be turned on and off instantly. And what that does is it helps stabilize the grid. And it also is going to open up, like, we can't build a lot more renewable projects right now because of battery technology, right? When you produce electricity, somebody has to use it. You have to match supply and demand with electricity. And today, battery technology can't fill the gap when you can produce more solar energy than the grid can use, or more wind energy. And what people don't even understand is they actually shut those things down. Like, when they're producing too much electricity, they turn them off. And if you can pair Bitcoin mining with these renewable energy projects, all of a sudden the payback on those projects come way down. You're able to build a lot more of them, and it stabilizes the grid. The other thing with renewable energy is nobody wants a wind farm in their backyard. Nobody wants large solar installation in their backyard. So these things have to be built further away, and there isn't demand for electricity further away, but you can put a Bitcoin mining facility in those remote locations and help those projects get built faster. And we're starting to see the large energy producers, they're starting to wake up to it, and they're starting to recognize this. And I think we're going to see this connection between, this marriage between Bitcoin mining and renewable projects. And it's going to accelerate our move towards renewable. I think it's super exciting. And everyone that wants to be naysayers on it, I don't think they really understand what's happening. And look,
the uneducated and uninformed.
The uninformed. Like, they haven't done the research, and they don't understand it well enough. And it's kind of, I look at everybody, look at how much Elon Musk had to deal with when he was getting Tesla off the ground. And I'm not saying go out and buy Tesla stock, but that vehicle has changed the world. I mean, every major manufacturer now has a roadmap to get to 100% electric vehicles in the next 5 years. 5 years ago, people laughed at Elon, and now they're all joining him. It's just a better way of.
So I have a question for you, Mike.
Yeah.
As someone who, you are in the trenches from moving mining forward, especially with the actors and the key stakeholders here in the US. Does Bitcoin mining have a PR problem and a reputation problem? And does it need active kind of advocacy? Or is this something where the utility is just going to be so great that everyone who's kind of bad mouthing this without doing proper research just going to shut up eventually? What's kind of your take of the state right now?
So, I mean, I think every time Bitcoin price runs, this narrative comes out that, Bitcoin mining is bad for the world and we're going to boil the oceans. And then when Bitcoin price goes down, no one talks about it. And Bitcoin price comes back up, it comes back out. And I think that a big part of it is education and having people get comfortable with it. I mean, some of the negativity comes around because they just don't believe in Bitcoin, right? And it's like, look, if you don't believe in Bitcoin, there's no there's no way of convincing them otherwise. And I think there's going to be this kind of slow adoption as more and more people get comfortable with Bitcoin and this idea that we can transfer value electronically. They're going to understand that the network is important. Like, that's part of who we are, So I always give the example of people like, I don't understand Bitcoin. I'm like, well, do you understand TCP IP? And they're like, what is that? And I was like, well, that's kind of like how everything works that we use every day. And you don't really need to understand TCP IP to use the internet or do our Zoom call right now. But it's pretty important infrastructure and a pretty important protocol layer. And I think that's what Bitcoin's going to be someday. And no one's going to even ask the questions about the energy usage.
Yeah, well, and again, like I said, everyone who's actually leading the forefront on every energy project is going to be using Bitcoin, because honestly, this is what, like, I'm not a miner, but I'm obsessed with Bitcoin mining because of like the second and third order effects of what does it mean to have like this consistent energy buyer of last resort, right? Like, and people have not thought about like what that means for how things work and how things can work moving forward with that there. And you really did a great job of illustrating, some of the key ways that Bitcoin improves the current situation and moves us towards enabling a lot more green energy projects to actually flourish and be enabled in the first place.
Yeah, it goes all the way through even to the wafer manufacturing process. Bitcoin mining is allowing innovation happening all the way through the whole tech stack. So, I think in the future, there's a ton of experimentation right now around immersion mining, which I think is going to be a really big deal. Immersion mining not only helps Bitcoin mining, but it's going to help the rest of, the people like Google and Amazon and the big data centers. I think that we're learning about ASIC development, and that's going to start to bleed into other parts of compute. There's just a lot of technology advancement that happens in the Bitcoin world because you can measure results so quickly, right? Like, whether it works or it doesn't work instantly. And I think it's incredibly amazing. And same thing with like the whole energy discussion. It's like we can actually measure the amount of energy on the Bitcoin network. And if you can measure it, you can control it and you can improve it. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, the Bitcoin algorithm is ruthless in its drive for low cost. And the lowest cost is going to be renewable energy. And Bitcoin miners are running all over the world trying to find the lowest cost energy. And we don't need anybody else telling us what to go do, because we're doing it without any oversight. It's amazing.
I believe in everything that you're talking about. I think it's absolutely amazing. There's a second order effect here that affects how jurisdictions manage their energy today. And that is the subject of subsidies, right? Energy subsidies are a big thing. Like every, jurisdiction across the globe leverages energy subsidies, and they often have, kind of nationalized or jurisdictionalized kind of energy production. Like, I see miners as like they're almost like energy pirates, and they're going to go and they're going to harvest all of your subsidies until you cut them off or, whatever. But they're going to, if you're artificially lowering the price of energy, like they're going to arb that out. Like in terms of like the world of energy subsidies and where Bitcoin fits into that, like, do you think about that at all? I'm sure you do.
Yeah. So, like I say, the Bitcoin algorithm is ruthless in its drive for the lowest cost. So you're absolutely right. They're going everywhere to find where the lowest cost is. And if somebody is subsidizing electricity in one area, they're going to go exploit that. And that may be really good for that area, or maybe that subsidy is probably maybe not a good idea, right? But I think in the end, I think what's going to happen is the big energy producers are going to recognize the benefit of marrying the Bitcoin mining technology with their renewable projects. And it's just we're going to see an explosion of new renewable projects that are going to have a huge benefit to the world. I think that's where it's going to go. And I think those countries and those communities that recognize it and embrace it are going to be the ones that win, right? So those that resist and push back, they're going to be left out.
I agree. Absolutely. Again, do you kind of have like any thoughts around, proof of stake, GPU mining, and like how, like, does that tie into the energy grid? Are they playing in this game, or is it just like, is this something Bitcoin's like, does Bitcoin matter for energy production, or is it proof of work in general? I know that was a wide ranging question, but I'm kind of curious since you're involved in all of it.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that back up. So we have a very big staking business where we support now over 20 proof of stake protocols. And we're, part of what we do is we're essentially the infrastructure team for DCG, right? So DCG makes investments in coins or Genesis or Luna or potentially Grayscale someday. We're the infrastructure team that kind of supports the staking for those businesses, as well as the portfolio companies and institutional size players that want a trusted partner for their staking. So I definitely, I wouldn't say it's fun to work at Foundry because we've kind of got like the proof of work team, and they're like, some of them are like Bitcoin maximalists, and that's where the world's going. And then we've got the proof of stake team, and there's just some amazing projects on the proof of stake side that we love. And I think, there's projects like Zen, LivePeer, Flow. They're out there solving certain difficulties in the market, and I think there's going to be a ton of opportunity and a ton of things that they can go. They're going to add,
but they're not really playing into like the energy game, right?
So they're not playing in the energy game. I mean, they're hosted in the cloud network, and it's just a different protocol to solve a different problem, right? So Bitcoin is proof of work, and it's the king of proof of work. And, we've got a long history of that working, and I don't think that's ever going to change on that side.
Okay. So
I don't know if I answered your question, but
do you find like I'm trying to like lead you to, and maybe it's not right to lead someone, but do you think like Bitcoin's moat as like the king of proof of work, like is that like cement Bitcoin forever in your mind? Like, what does that mean? Like, because that's my personal Bitcoin maximalist perspective, but I'm just kind of curious what you think.
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin's getting ready to go through another evolution. It's not going away. People like now to kind of put it in a bucket where it says this is, a store of value. I think part of where the next phase is layer 2 that comes on top of Bitcoin. So you've got things like the block stack. There's staking or stacking now that's happening where you can start to deploy smart contracts on top of the Bitcoin network where it provides the basis. I do think that a lot of the ecosystem is going to end up getting built on top of Bitcoin, and we can't even imagine where this goes, right? Like, I came out of college, I was programming HTML 1.0. Like we sat around having all of these discussions on what the internet's going to do and how it's going to change the world. But it took 20 years, before you got a supercomputer in your pocket. And that we use it on a, literally everyday basis. Like we can't live without it. So where does Bitcoin go? It's hard to tell, but there's no stopping it. And it's being done in a decentralized way that allows anybody in the world to participate and to develop on it. And I just think that's an incredibly powerful characteristic.
Gotcha. I mean, obviously you have to be bullish on Bitcoin to like be investing so heavily into it, right? Like that's what miners are the most skin in the game players. If you think about what's actually going on, because like every piece of equipment, every contract, every facility is a leverage long position on Bitcoin essentially.
Absolutely. Long term, I view Bitcoin mining as it's going to become like a utility. We're going to think about Bitcoin mining as like a utility, I think, over time. So we've got electrical utility, grid. We've got all the pipes that connect the internet, and we're going to have this global computer that can't be shut down, that's transferring value around the world, and there's no stopping it, which is crazy.
Awesome. Mike, this is a really bullish conversation. I liked picking your brain about, kind of all of these subjects, as well as, what Foundry is doing specifically. I want to give you a chance, like, what's your last word for the Bitcoin Magazine audience? I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, I guess one of the things is I want to say I'm really proud to be a Bitcoin miner. And, I think everybody here at Foundry, we've got an amazing team, and we wake up every day just determined to create a new world that's decentralized, that transfers the power to the masses, and we're changing the world. People say, "What do you do during COVID?" I say, "Well, I'm building out the new financial system." Well, the old financial system is getting destroyed. So It's fun, it's exciting. Can't wait to get to Miami and see everybody there. So looking forward to meeting up with you, Christian.
Absolutely. And I mean, I just have to echo the optimism. And I think that Bitcoiners are excited, and it's awesome to see, someone like yourself who's at the front lines building out the actual infrastructure, the picks and shovels of the network, also being so optimistic. And I think it runs through the entire community and the entire network. And it's definitely being channeled in Miami. So I'm just excited to be at the epicenter.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
All right. Well, hey, to the listeners, where can they find you?
You can go to foundrydigital.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Foundry Services. And we can see everybody in Miami here soon. I think we sponsored with a Dome or something. One of the you can meet us at the Dome, the Hash Lounge or something. I don't know what you guys call it.
Let's go. That sounds like a fun spot. You get to lounge in some hash.
Yeah,
all right,
y'all.
You well, hey, you can find Mike and Foundry at Bitcoin 2021 in Miami. You can find me there. And you can be there too. Go to b.tc/conference, get your ticket, use promo code Satoshi, save yourself 10%. And if you pay with Bitcoin, you can save yourself some more money too. So we want your sats, and excited for partying in Miami. Until then, peace.
Thanks, Christian. Bye.
Cheers.